What's up, y'all? You probably saw the title of this video and thought, obviously, a dedicated $1,000, multi-$1,000 camera is definitely better than a smartphone. But the goal of this video is not to see which is better, but how close can a smartphone get to the quality of a dedicated, higher tier camera. So there's been a trend over the past 5 years or so of people buying more and more cameras, whether it's the Canon G7X to get that soft nostalgic look, or a Sony A6000 series for the bang for the buck all around family camera, or a Sony A7IV for the serious camera nerds who are trying to get a beast of a hybrid camera. And so for people in those two earlier groups, I've always wondered, why were they spending so much on a camera when a smartphone could probably get a majority of the shots they were even looking to take? So today I'm pitting up what is arguably one of, if not the best camera system in a smartphone right now, and that's the iPhone 17 Pro. And I'm putting it against a multi-$1,000 Sony A7IV to see how close we can get to this premium level camera. So major asterisk here in the beginning of the video, it's that when an average person takes photos, generally they're not tweaking things like the ISO, shutter speed, color correcting, etc. So when they buy a camera, they pretty much leave it on auto just to make it as user-friendly as they would when using a smartphone. And so even though it really hurt me to do this, all the photos and videos we're gonna be going over today that were shot on the iPhone 17 Pro, as well as the Sony A7IV that I'm using to shoot right now, were all taken on the auto setting, and I didn't edit them at all. Just clicked shoot, and I'm showing you exactly what I've gotten out of it. First things first, let's go over the specs. The iPhone 17 Pro has 3 different cameras that can be used interchangeably depending on the shooting scenario. So the primary wide, that's what's one up top right there, has a 48 megapixel f1.87 sensor at a 24mm focal length with sensor shift optical image stabilization. The ultra wide, that's the one right here on the side, has a 48 megapixel f2.2 sensor at 13mm focal length. The telephoto camera, that's this one down here at the bottom, has a 48 megapixel f2.8 sensor at 100mm focal length. That's also known as 4x on the zoom for specifically the iPhone 17 Pro series. And it uses their 3D sensor shift optical image stabilization. The camera system as a whole also has software image stabilization, Pro RAW support, and various shooting modes such as portrait mode, panorama, spatial, and night mode. And on the video side of things, it offers 4K video at up to 60 FPS on all cameras, and then it can also do up to 120 FPS on the primary camera for things like slow motion. And then if you want it even slower, you can do 1080p at 240 FPS. And it also supports things like ProRes and ProRes RAW, as well as Apple Log 2 and Genlock for all you serious videographers on iPhone. It also offers various modes such as dual capture, so that's being able to shoot on the front-facing camera and the rear at the same time. It also offers cinematic, action, spatial, night mode, and time-lapse. And on the camera side of things, the Sony A7IV uses a 33 megapixel full-frame sensor with in-body image stabilization. It uses the Sony E-mount for its lenses. It shoots 7K oversampled video at 4K at up to 60 FPS, also at 10-bit. It has an electronic viewfinder right here. It has 2 memory card slots that I can show you right now. So you can put that up to the camera. You can see 2 slots. The top slot also supports CFS Express Type A cards, and the both slots do micro SD at up to UHS 2 speeds. It has a full-size HDMI port that offers a full clean output. It also has 2 3.5 millimeter audio jacks, one for, right, let me show that right there. So one for the microphone and one for like a pair of headphones if you wanted to hear the audio that's being recorded. It also has down here one USB-C port and then one micro USB port. The USB-C port supports power and data, and the micro USB is just for data. On the back, it has a 3-inch touchscreen, LCD, and it tilts and swivels as well. It uses Sony's FP-Z100 batteries. So here is the battery right here. That'll get you about 520 shots, give or take. I don't have the exact data for video, but when my shooting time is usually about 30 minutes of so of footage, and that gets me about through half of my battery. So give or take, you'll get about an hour of footage. Also, on top, you might have noticed I have this DJI receiver for the transmitters I use to record my video, and I have it on the Sony adapter. This is obviously an accessory. And then on the bottom, I have my plate that I use to put it on my tripod. Obviously, it doesn't come with the camera, but I'm just showing you everything it has. The lens I have on it is a 16-28 f2.8 millimeter focal length lens from Sigma, and it also has autofocus on it. But I think that wraps up the specs for the iPhone 17 Pro as well as the Sony A7 IV. So let's actually get to the images and video, and I'll give you my thoughts. All right, so let's go over the videos and pictures I took at the park and some in the city, kind of compare the iPhone 17 Pro versus the Sony A7 IV. First things first, this picture I took at the park. So there's this big bean tree at the park that's kind of in the center. So I took a picture from the kind of side of it where the sun is coming from behind it to kind of get this cool picture with the sun flare in the center of it. And so first let's look at the iPhone picture. Off the bat, I think a common thing you'll see across all of these pictures from the iPhone is how much more vibrant and bright the overall image is. It's just a lot more colorful, and all the colors are being bumped up a little bit, and so is the brightness of the overall image. And so first things first, when compared directly to the Sony, one thing you'll notice is the sun flare that's kind of in the center right here is handled a lot better. Let's look at the Sony really quickly. The sun flare is just completely blown out. You can't see anything, none of the trees, none of the branches, things like that. But in this image, there's still a lot of detail there. And we're going back and forth. Because everything is brighter, the dark parts aren't as dark as they're supposed to be. So even though I can see what's going on in the shadows, it's not as accurate to how the sunlight was looking at that time. It was about 4 p.m. The sun was on its way down. In this time period around November, right now it's November. In the West Coast LA, sunset is roughly around 5 p.m. So it definitely wasn't this bright at this time. And one thing you'll notice is sharpness wise, when we're zooming in, it starts to get really soft, and you're not able to make out individual leaves and things like that in certain parts of the image. But let's look at the Sony picture. The Sony A7 IV, I mentioned it completely blew that part out, so that's not great. But it's also a lot darker. If you guys have seen MQBHD's blind smartphone camera test, the phones that did the best and ended up winning were usually the ones that were the brightest, because people tend to prefer a brighter image regardless of how color accurate it is. So this picture from the Sony A7 IV is overall darker, but compared to the amount of light there was at that time, it's actually more accurate. And that's generally what I prefer, as I want my pictures to look as they were supposed to at that time of day. And so generally, this picture to me is better. But overall, I think people will prefer the iPhone picture for this specific scenario. But a couple other things is sharpness. Let's zoom into that similar part of the image. You'll notice it's much sharper. You're able to easily distinguish individual leaves, and there's not a lot of data that's lost from zooming in. But even here, I'm still able to see, even while it's dark, the shadows. I'm still able to capture all the various leaves that are on the ground, the brown leaves that's coming in for fall, things like that. Overall, it looks pretty great, and I think overall the sharpness is significantly better on the Sony. Now, with that being said, again, it's personal preference, but let's look at another picture. This is taken at the park again, but kind of at this like gazebo bench area. And I wanted to kind of get this because I think it does a good job of showcasing a bit more colors from the park specifically, some more earthy tones. So let's look at the iPhone first. First thing you'll notice, again, brighter image. But another thing is just the color specifically. So here in the leaves, again, it's fall, so we're seeing some more brownish leaves that are coming in. And here on the ground, we're also seeing some of the leaves that have fallen, things like that. You notice the kind of orangish, reddish bench seats that look like they're kind of made out of like that, like clay, like terracotta clay. The green, the dumpster and the writing that's on it, that's all still legible, which is great. But it's way too bright. I think that's the biggest downside for me. And also, when we're really zooming in, things start to look a little softer, and a lot of data is lost. So you can tell how blurry things are getting now. But look at the Sony A7IV, darker image overall. But look at how much more data there is in these images. I'm able to zoom in a lot. I'm still able to retain a ton of information. The leaves all look very clear. I can easily distinguish individual leaves. And here on the ground, I'm able to easily see the various leaves on the ground. The red benches look how they're supposed to. In this current light, you can see the shadows a lot more prominently. It doesn't look like the shadows are being completely blown out. Overall, I think it's a much better image. Again, super legible still, so you're not sacrificing legibility for shadows, things like that. And then let's move on to the next one. Yeah, so this is one in the city. And here I'm taking a picture of a small intersection. But one thing I wanted to notice specifically is the building with the Highland Theater sign on it. And also this sign down at the bottom left with the lettering on it. So first things first, let's look at the iPhone picture. Super bright. Sunlight right here, bit of a yellowish tint to it. And overall, the stores with the awnings on them, you can make out the gates, fences they put on the outside to close it. All the colors are just boosted. Even here, like the sunlight looks like it's hitting the sign a lot harder than it really is. It's a lot more shiny. Even back here with the Tesla, you're able to easily tell. It looks a lot brighter in red specifically. I think it's the biggest thing I'm noticing. But down here, it's still legible. I can easily read this sign. It looks perfectly fine as far as legibility is concerned. But when we're looking at the Sony, we're zooming in and boom, it's a little bit less legible. That's because in this specific instance, it got the foreground, the background in focus, but things here on the sides where the sign is, things like that, it didn't capture in focus very well. So the autofocus kind of missed on this one, but color-wise, the sign or the side of this building is a lot more accurate. Let's look back and forth. It seems like the yellow is significantly more pronounced on this image, but here it's a little bit more of a whitish yellow shade, more accurate to the sunset colors that we're seeing at the time. Still not sunset yet, it's about 4:30 at this time, but sunset is about to start. So you can kind of see which ways the shadows are facing to kind of tell how high the sun is in the sky. Here when we're looking at the awnings for the stores, the shadows pretty much have them fully blocked out. Oops, let me get that out of the way. But when we're zooming in, you can still make out the details from it. And even this sign that's way back here, I can make out just like the big letterings and the phone number that's there. So a lot of detail is still in the image from when I'm zooming in, things like that. So one thing it did do well is capture all the information. Let's actually look back at the iPhone image really quickly to see how well it did at capturing that sign back there. You can still barely make it out if you wanted to try, but it's significantly blurrier. So you can tell it did do a good job at capturing all that data. All right, look at the next one. This is another picture taken at an intersection, but this one is with cars in motion. So I wanted to try that, see how that would look. And so one of the things I also want you to watch out for is the different color tones that are in this image as well. So the iPhone image first, again, a lot brighter, but it did a really good job of capturing the cars in motion. There's no streaks, everything is in focus the way it's supposed to be. And everything looks the way it's supposed to be, but I think one thing you'll notice is the greens here and also the sunlight on this Chase building back here. Keep an eye on that because when we look at the Sony image, you'll notice again, this green is a little bit more faded, seems a little bit more muted, but I think it's more so blown out is a better word for it. You'll probably have noticed that in the park pictures as well, because when we switch back to the Sony image, it is darker, but the darkest images are as dark as they're supposed to be, and the brightest images are as bright as they're supposed to be. The shadows look dark, The green is more vibrant in the sense that it's like more accurate to the green color that we're looking for. The sunlight is the correct color or like shade of light that you'd expect at this time of day. You're able to clearly read everything. All the words are super legible. Even when I zoom in to the sign on the Chase building, I can make out some of the words that aren't blocked out by the street light. And so we're looking at the iPhone image. Oh, well, that sign is blocked out. But there's another sign here on this car. Still legible, but definitely a lot fuzzier. You can tell with the yellow here, the shadow isn't super accurate. Things are being kind of blown out a little bit for the sake of a brighter image. All right. And then last but not least for the photos is this a fire hydrant. That's a bright yellow. I took it because I wanted to kind of really show the difference in colors and brightness, specifically when it comes to a bright color like yellow. So honestly, I actually prefer the way the fire hydrant looks in this image because it's a brighter shade of yellow, but honestly, it wouldn't have looked like this unless it was noon or 12 p.m. at the time. It was like 4:45. The sun was basically setting or almost setting at this point. So the Sony image here, way darker. I don't think it actually did a good job of actually capturing a ton of light. I don't think this is a great picture overall. But when it comes to the color of the fire hydrant, this is more accurate to how my eyes saw it and how I expected it to look. But overall, honestly, I prefer the iPhone image overall. As far as the hydrant is concerned, I think overall it's still a little too blown out. Still, for the sake of brightness, it's still lifting up all the highlights and things like that, and like crushing any shadows, so you can't really tell. But that concludes all the photos that I've taken. So let's take a look at the videos. All right, this is video from the iPhone 17 Pro. Again, everything's set to auto. I haven't tweaked any of the settings, audio or video. So this is how it would look exactly coming straight from the phone. If you were to post this straight up, already I can tell there's a bit more shake. I'm trying to hold it as still as I can while walking down this road, so that hopefully the stabilization can hold up. All right, this is me shooting on the Sony A7IV. Looks pretty stable as I'm looking at my display right here. It's set to auto, and the microphone is coming straight from the camera itself. I have everything set to auto. This is more or less how I'd expect a novice or someone who's really not into cameras to use the video recording on this camera. Obviously, as I mentioned before, if you're know about cameras, or this isn't your first time, then you'll tweak the settings and make it look how you want it to look. But this is more or less how I would sound, how I'd look shooting straight from the camera, me holding it, and it's pretty heavy, so I wouldn't really expect most people to do any vlog footage like this. All right, this is how it would sound and look if I was using the rear primary camera. Immediately I can tell the stabilization is way better using the rear camera. I'm still haven't changed any audio or video settings, so this is how it would sound. Let me know what you guys would think. This is how it would look if I were recording from the back, holding the phone, the camera itself, walking down this path, trying to keep it as still as I can so you can tell the in-body stabilization. Everything's set to auto. This is how it would sound as well. So the mics aren't directly facing me. And then this is how everything would look. I haven't tweaked any settings. Again, this is how I would expect someone who's a novice or just bought the camera and has it all set to auto. This is what I'd expect them to do. All right, so one thing I think you'll notice from the video specifically when I'm walking with the camera facing myself is that the iPhone is way better at stabilization. I'm holding it and it is lighter, so that also plays a part. It's just easier for my hand to hold it one-handed, but it's not shaky. You can easily tell that I'm walking on an uneven road, but I'm holding it very steady. Still super bright. The colors are definitely boosted, but not in the way you'd expect from like a vivid image, but it's more so just like it's kind of blowing out a little bit. But on the Sony side of things, it's a little bit more darker, but it's significantly more accurate. Image is a lot sharper. Everything around me looks more crisp, things like that. But it's way shakier. Again, for this specific test, the Sony A7IV, it's not a vlogging camera, way too heavy to be able to do that realistically. It's made for, setting on a tripod, things like that. So I won't fault it too much for this specific scenario, but I want you to take a look at the sharpness, colors, everything. You'll definitely notice a difference between the iPhone and the Sony. On the audio side of things though, they're very close. Now, these cameras, the Sony cameras, cameras in general, audio isn't their biggest focus, directly in the body. They have microphones and they're all pretty decent, pretty solid, at this point, but I'd recommend getting a dedicated microphone if you're going to do any sort of, foreign recording, like shotgun mic, a lavalier mic, any of those will do you pretty well. But overall, the built-in mic did a pretty good job. There was a little bit of wind and it did a good job at canceling that out. Same thing for the iPhone. I did a great job at getting my voice and not capturing too much of what was going on in the background. I'm at a park, so it's pretty quiet. So I'm in a pretty ideal scenario with low wind at a relatively quiet location. But still, I think overall audio-wise, they're pretty tied. But the point of this video, again, was not to say which one was better. Obviously, again, if I were to spend time tweaking the settings on the camera, I could get a much better image out of it. But the goal was to see how close the smartphone could come to a dedicated, multi-thousand-dollar camera, to see if it was really worth shelling out all that money when you have a really good camera system already in your pocket. And in my eyes, the iPhone was about 75–80% of the way there of the capabilities of this Sony camera. Now, that last 20% is a big hurdle to jump, but realistically, most people are taking images of their kids, at a soccer game or running around the house, recording, TikToks and things that aren't, super high fidelity. So the only thing you're really losing out on is like zoom capabilities, things like that. And for the purposes of this video, I primarily shot on the primary lens or the ultra wide, so I didn't really touch the telephoto as much. But honestly, if you need the telephoto, it's great to have it. One thing about a camera is you have to have different lenses to get different zooms and things like that. So overall, you're going to be spending significantly more on a camera, but as you can tell, there's definitely some benefits to it. So overall, let me know what you guys thought. If you're kind of on the fence about buying a camera and you already have a pretty solid smartphone in your pocket that's within the past 3 years or so, did you decide to go for a camera, or did you think, wow, my phone is pretty close, maybe I shouldn't spend all this money on a camera? Let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the video. If you guys would like to see more versus, I can put other things against each other and kind of see a good comparison there. Like the video if you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later.